Krystal Versace, congratulations, you are the winner of this week's challenge.
Yeah, Drag Race UK is going down under. Oh, shit. Hello everybody, and welcome to a special episode of The Chop for Drag Race UK Season 3. I know, I still haven't edited the last 2 episodes of All Stars, so why the hell am I here spending time talking about UK Season 3 instead of editing the live streams? Well, that is a matter of timing really, because I noticed something very interesting going on with the edit. And in good or bad, I'd like to get some ideas out there on what's going to happen, and most importantly, why and how, because that is the most rewarding part of actually doing a show like this. Now, as you know, 2 weeks ago we talked about Willam, what he had to say about filming and what was going on behind the scenes, which for the moment, in part at least, seems to be confirmed with Victoria's cone injury after the lip sync in episode 1. And some of you left some interesting questions on that video, and I'd like to take a minute to answer the most important one. Why should we trust Willam? I like it. That's a great question to ask. Always be skeptical, always take things with a grain of salt. You are my kind of viewer. Thank you. So, at the time of filming, Willam was in the UK, and as far as I know, she's even good friends with some queens back there. Now, we know that many queens spilled a little bit of tea here and there from time to time with no real consequences. But when it comes to major things that heavily impact the brand, the season, or maybe even RuPaul herself, remember, nothing you say matters unless those cameras are rolling. So you know what happens to them, right? No lawsuit. No, of course no lawsuit, because that brings like a Streisand effect upon the franchise. But they have been cut out of World of Wonder. And as you know, one of the perks of having a monopolistic position in a market is that you can deny work to someone, and they're basically done for. So it makes sense that those UK queens would talk to Willam, because Willam is one of the very few queens who has her own brand and cannot be scared into silence by being threatened with missed opportunities. Now, Willam also seems to have a flair for the dramatic, I will give you that, but with Victoria's injuries and much of the production troubles showing on screen already, I have very little doubt about the veracity of what she said. So Drag Race UK Season 3 is officially going down under, yay! And transforming into a train wreck of epic proportions. Now, we know from Willam that they had to rush production due to scheduling conflict, since, according to Willam again, RuPaul had to rush filming International All-Stars. Remember last time I told you about the consequences of rushing through production, and how that will inevitably impact every aspect of the show. Now, to complicate matters, by BBC policy, the queens can't be manipulated, so no mismatched confessionals, no reaction shots taken out of context to carry on narratives, no Frankenstein sentences to have the queens basically say whatever the production want them to say, nothing of that. So production has very little left to actually manipulate the narrative, namely the Cryptiques, and we are going to talk about those in a moment, and something else. Something some of you might have noticed, but I bet the vast majority didn't. The background music. In this season, the background music is ever present and so fucking intrusive that at times you can barely hear the queens talking. Which is genius, by the way, because think about it for a moment. If you cannot manipulate what someone is saying, at least they can try to manipulate the way you feel about everything that's being said. So that something that maybe even sounds like normal or common can be interpreted as being secretly shady or malicious or delusional. And the opposite goes, of course, even if something like an obligatory apology, for example, like the one from Krystal Versace to Victoria's Cone after basically calling her fat, can be seamlessly elevated to an act of maturity and maybe even virtuosity. And of course, we have a ton of that, because remember, there's no time to sort through the storylines in post-production. So you need to force this bare-bone storylines by elevating basically the obvious. And on top of that, I kind of have a feeling that, differently from what happens in the US version of Drag Race, the winner was already picked from the beginning. Now, I know, let me explain for a moment, because in the US, the elimination order and the top 4 is probably already decided before the season even start filming. And we had plenty of clues about that over the years, but the winner itself look like it's going to be decided based on what the viewer's reaction will actually be after watching the season unfold. And that's one of the perks of filming the finale only after the whole season aired. But in the UK, based on what we saw in the first 2 seasons, it looks like even the winner is picked since the very beginning. And if this is true, then episode 2 gave us 2 very important clues of what's going to happen. Now, this last episode was all about building Krystal's character at the expenses of Victoria's Cone. That's because Victoria's injury, it's a serious one. Because hurting a knee like that, especially when you are a bigger person, and don't ask me how I know, is literally no joke. There is no chance of a speedy recovery whatsoever from that, and I bet everyone in the production knew about that already. Victoria was probably checked already after that lip sync, maybe in the night, but most probably in the morning, since those kind of injuries tend to manifest themselves in full force the morning after, and she is in no condition to continue in the competition. I have no doubt at this point that she will be sent home, probably with an invitation to come back, because that would be the bare minimum, especially taking into account Willam's words. Remember when she said girls didn't have time to warm up and got injured? Because that looks like exactly what happened to Victoria Scone, so coming back would be literally the bare minimum. But the point here is, production probably knew already before starting filming episode 2 that she couldn't compete. She wasn't fit to compete anymore. And you know, she was my best bet for the top 4 because it would have generated a lot of buzz. It already did before the season even began airing. And you know, today buzz means money. So with Victoria out of the picture as a top 4, she can be effectively sacrificed for narrative purposes because she has no other use anymore. And that's all that happens in episode 2. Behind those beautiful moments that we saw in the workroom, a common narrative was to be carried on. The one of a young and inexperienced queen learning her lesson through mistakes. That queen is Krystal Versace. And to confirm this, by virtue of manipulating the edit and the cryptiques, she was even given a win. No doubt to solidify the idea of deserving to be rewarded after successfully going through a journey. The journey of being understanding. The journey of understanding that you cannot go around calling people fat. I swear this fucking season is really going for the lowest possible denominator. Now, no shade to Krystal, of course, because I know very little about her. But one thing I do know, and that is that not only she didn't deserve a win, but she was probably worthy of being low, maybe even in the bottom, if the judges decided to cryptic her outfit into oblivion. We saw her struggling during the rehearsal, and we know from Willam that there's a very high chance that this was all filmed in a day. So what gives? Well, I'll tell you what. Krystal basically disappeared on the main stage. Whatever is left of her is 5% shots of her being shown in sync with the other queens, 60% first-person shots so that we cannot see if she is indeed in sync with the others. Spoiler alert, she was probably not. And 35% of her being cleverly edited out of the performance to hide the fact that she was royally fucking up the choreography. Yes, because on the main stage there were other queens too, and you know, you need to show them as well at some point. So what do you do if Krystal is having difficulties in the background and you need to cover that up? Well, in that case, you take advantage of clever camera angles and clever editing, which is exactly what we saw happening. So, all of this must be going on for a reason, but they also gave us another clue. In episode 1, a queen of the same age of Krystal was immediately sent home. Which was a curious choice, especially because people would be drawn to directly compare them since they are the same age. And that comparison could potentially put Krystal in a bad line. That's a lesson that the producers at World of Wonder learned a long time ago. If you allow the viewers to make direct comparisons and decide for themselves, then you lose your grip on the narrative. And that is strike 3. And that's why here is your first queen in the top 4. Now, if you enjoyed the video so far, I hope we earned a thumb up, maybe even a subscription, in case there are any new viewers watching, you know. Sometimes I do ask people in the very beginning, but it doesn't really make much sense to ask for something without even seeing at least part of the video. So thanks for feeding the algorithm so far with your support, and let's go back talking about Season 3. So, Krystal must be in the top 4, but not the winner, no. Her headed has been meddled with way too much and way too quick to just be a coincidence. They could have easily built up a very convincing narrative of maturity spanning the course of the whole season. We've seen that happen before, which makes sense for young and very talented queens who seem to sometimes be overconfident or paying the price of lacking experience. But they didn't go for that. They rushed, which can only mean one thing for me. She is not the winner, she's a decoy. The winner is someone else that will come longer all the way to the top 4. So who else is going to be in that top 4? Well, I have very little idea. Surely someone will take Victoria's Cone representation spot. In that case, it's going to be the only big queen left in the competition. And if we learned something so far, is that production seems to be kind of panicking under pressure, aren't they? And going for the lowest possible denominator, like for example, body weight, which would not surprise me in the slightest. Maybe we'll have a second representation spot for a queen of color, could be, but I wouldn't be so sure since the UK has a much lower percentage of its population being actual people of color or immigrants. But at the end of the day, these 3 queens could really be anyone, but at least we have a couple of clues. First of all, one of them is the winner, and second, none of them is Veronica Green. I know it's shocking, but I think they're really going to go for that. You know that coming back from season 2, that's basically a whole storyline already, and if you couple it with a charming personality, a solid talent, well, she could have easily gone all the way to the top 4. But what happened in episode 2 didn't happen by chance. For me, she was cut short already. I have little to no doubt that most of you will agree with me that Veronica was the winner of this episode. But she was passed on. She was denalied. Hello, Denali! We still remember you. And you know what this means, right? Veronica is a distraction, someone that could easily outshine the big winner for this season. Well, it's time to cut her out real quick, so that the viewers will have to concentrate on whoever is left. Yeah, that's what you do when you're left with very little substance. You need to surgically cut off anything that can be distracting or can be used as a comparison to avoid the risk of people realizing that whatever shit show you're making is actually a shit show. And yes, this season is a complete mess 2 episodes in, and I have no reason to believe that it's going to get any better. Shock value is already dialed to maximum, and there is no going back from that. If you didn't have time to properly cast, properly produce, properly editing, and generally creating a show, well, then you have no chance to properly entertain the viewers. And what are you left with to keep them coming back? Shock value on top of shock value on top of shock value, and after that this season will be forgotten and ready to be replaced by another iteration of the show. And I expect them to go full force on that. So next episode Victoria will probably go home, and after that expect double shantay, shocking eliminations like Veronica Green, for example, probably Charissa already, since her character was allowed to shine real quick real soon. A little bit too quick to be a coincidence, too quick without winning anything too. So mind you, of course, queens coming back, because why not? What else? Maybe the forgotten heart of double eliminations? Could be. Expect everything, because one thing seems to be sure around here. Production is desperate to keep your attention on the screen. And that's exactly why I won't be watching or covering the season anymore. Because this kind of production, let's be honest for a moment, it's disrespectful to everyone. It's disrespectful to the viewers, but especially to the queens, who had to go to so much stress. Because Rue had to film 368 seasons in a month. Not to mention buying all of those outfits and supplies after a whole year of getting no jobs because everyone was in lockdown. If we keep rewarding this thing with our attention, they will continue to go on as if it's nothing and do the same shit over and over and over again, thinking that they can go away with it and nobody cares. So what I suggest is that you vote with your attention, because in today's world, engagement is a currency, and if you want things to change, you need to vote with your wallet. And that's what I suggest you do if you agree with everything that I said so far. If you disagree and you are enjoying this season so far, of course, by all means, I even envy you that you are enjoying it, because I am not. I am most definitely not. So, at the end of the day, good for you. That's the point. No hard feelings. Now, I'll be coming on stream this Sunday to give my final thoughts after episode 3 and maybe dig a little bit more on all the topics that I talked about in this video. If you have any questions or just want to discuss the season with me and the usual suspects, feel free to join me on Sunday. After that, I will probably move on to Canada and see if something interesting is happening in there. Thank you so much for watching, and thanks to our patrons for supporting the channel, because with everything that's been going on lately, your help is not only appreciated, in a way is also needed. So thank you so much, and a warm welcome to Ferowin, Anna Miriam, Anthony Hong, and Jules, who just joined. Thank you so much for your support. So join us on Sunday if you will, and I will see you very soon. Have a great day.